The man who murdered Grace Millane will spend at least 17 years behind bars before he's eligible for early release. The 28-year-old strangled the British backpacker in his central Auckland apartment after they met for a Tinder date on the eve of her 22nd birthday. There was an eerie silence at the High Court in Auckland today as the high-profile case came to a close. Our court reporter Anneke Smith has followed the case from first appearance to trial and filed this story.
After sitting in silence for weeks during the trial, Grace Millane's mother finally spoke.
I am absolutely heartbroken that you have taken my daughter's future and robbed me of so many more memories that we were going to create.
Grace Millane died so far away from her friends and family. The young Brit set off from her hometown in Essex in October 2018 on a worldwide OE. After spending time in South America, she landed in Auckland, and it was here she met the man who would murder her. Gillian Millane said she wished it had been her.
As a mother, I would have done anything to change places with her. I sit full of guilt, knowing I couldn't help her, that I should have been there. She died terrified and alone in a room with you.
The 28-year-old man was found guilty of murdering Ms Millane after a 3-week trial last November. The pair had bar-hopped through Auckland's CBD on a Tinder date on the eve of Ms Millane's 22nd birthday. She was last seen alive walking into the man's City Life apartment with him at 9:40 that night. He wheeled her body out in a suitcase the following day before burying it in the Waitakere Ranges. Ms Millane's brother Declan told the court his life changed forever when investigators found her body.
This person did not just take Grace's life, but he took away a piece of my life as well. I've not felt whole since my sister's death.
The police were quick to track the man down as the last to see Ms Millane alive, largely thanks to a wealth of CCTV cameras around the city. He initially lied to the police, saying he'd parted ways with her that night with plans to see each other again. But he changed his story a few days later, admitting he'd buried her after waking from their night out to find her dead. The Crown argued the man strangled Ms Millane to death. The jury heard he took 7 intimate photographs of Ms Millane's body after she was dead. He also watched extreme pornography and googled Waitakere Ranges and hottest fire. Ms Millane's sister-in-law, Victoria, said the evidence had been difficult for the family to sit through.
The trial was incredibly difficult. I sat listening and reading about your actions, all of which will haunt me forever.
The man's lawyers argued Ms Millane's death had been accidental after rough sex gone wrong. However, the jury's unanimous guilty verdict meant it rejected this defence and found Ms Millane didn't consent to the actions that killed her. Crown Prosecutor Brian Dickey told the court the man had eroticised Ms Millane's death. He said the photographs, pornography, post-mortem Tinder date and disposal of Ms Millane's body were all aggravating factors in the case that warranted at least 17 years behind bars.
Its cumulative effect, the Crown says, may bring the court to a point of finding a high level of cruelty, depravity or callousness in the murder. So it needs to be considered in its whole, and it is, with great respect, extraordinary against any other case considered in New Zealand.
The man's defence lawyer, Ian Brookie, landed on a lower sentence of 11 years, but not before acknowledging Ms Millane's family.
The first point, Your Honour, I want to acknowledge is the input of the Millane family into this process. It is an important part of the process, and their acute sense of loss is, of course, acknowledged in these tragic circumstances.
He said his client's position hadn't changed since the guilty verdict at trial.
My instructions are that the defendant maintains his innocence, and that is his right.
Mr Brookie said a cultural report had found his client had a difficult and traumatic upbringing.
He was cut off from his mother and his only brother at a very young age. He's severely disconnected from his te ao Māori, and he had, by the time of December 2018, become isolated from both his culture and from his family, his key support networks.
Justice Moore accepted the man had a volatile upbringing, but said it didn't make him less culpable. He said Ms Millane was vulnerable as a young woman abroad, and even more so in the context of a sexual encounter.
You are a large and powerful man. She was diminutive. On your account, she asked you to hold her arms and then her throat. On your account, this was happening while you were having sexual intercourse. In that position, and in those circumstances, Ms Millane was particularly vulnerable. You were in a position of total physical dominance.
Justice Moore said the man's actions were hardly a spontaneous outpouring of remorse, sentencing the man to life in jail with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Outside court, Detective Inspector Scott Beard said the Millanes were pleased with the result, but nothing would bring their daughter back.
The impact of losing their daughter on her birthday in a foreign country has been devastating, and no matter what this outcome today, they will forever have the life sentence.
Mr Beard has worked closely with the family while overseeing the police investigation since its infancy. He thanked the New Zealand public for supporting the family and took aim at the toll the man's rough sex gone wrong defence had taken.
Strangling someone for 5 to 10 minutes till they die is not rough sex. If people are going to use that type of defence, all it actually does is repeatedly re-victimises the victim and the victim's family.
Justice Moore addressed this in court today. Speaking directly to Mr Brookie, he told him while defensive consent hadn't persuaded the jury to acquit, it was entirely proper of him to advance it.
You have been publicly criticised, along with your colleagues, in social media and other media fora for doing so. And that is wrong. And it reveals a concerning misunderstanding of the duties of defence counsel in criminal cases.
Justice Moore told the court the presumption of innocence and right to a fair trial are protected under the Bill of Rights. He said it had been Mr Brookie's duty to defend his client.
You ran the defence in the strong and competent fashion the courts in this country would expect of you.
Mr Brookie and his co-counsel declined to answer questions or comment on any appeal as they left the courthouse today. The man's father, who sat through the trial, also left the sentencing hearing without comment. Gillian Millane has vowed her daughter's death won't be in vain. The family have established a charity, Love Grace, in her name. It collects handbags full of sanitary items for victims of domestic violence. Mrs Millane says while nothing will bring her daughter back, her memory will live on and continue to better the lives of others.
No life sentence you receive today will match the life sentence without my grace. But I will do my utmost to ensure that no other family needs to go through what we have endured.
Ātui te ko Timatua ko Anneke Smith aho.